Hi Standers, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about one of the most asked questions that you guys have, and that's how can my spouse just suddenly turn and become someone that I don't recognize? How can they go no contact? How can they abandon their family, their children, their responsibilities? How can they bring up something I did in my past and hold it against me and use it as the very reason that they're doing what they're doing? And we're going to talk about the topic of deflection. Now, what is deflection? Deflection is when a person has made a decision in their heart that they are going to enter into a rebellious, selfish place. And they need a darn good excuse because they know it's wrong. And so they have to find deep within themselves something that justifies. Deflection is seeking out justification for their sin that they chose to be against what they know and have always known is wrong. Deflection will say to them, I'm doing this because you did this to me. And it is a very harmful thing for them to do, but I found that it is absolutely necessary because it's in that place of deflecting that they get into all sorts of places that expose themselves to themselves, which is exactly what they're trying to avoid. They're absolutely trying to run away from truth. And as they run away from truth, they're actually being shown the truth. And it starts to really weigh and bother their hearts because, like I said, they're being convicted. Deep down, as they react and they abandon their family, as they walk away, as they don't pay child support, as they get angry over things that they know that they've already forgiven, but now they're bringing it up, it starts to make them wonder, who have I become? The state of deflection is not pretty for them. And it will bring on a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, and a lot of condemnation, which to your spouse is not a good place to be. And they know. And a lot of times that anger that is coming out at you is sincerely because they are so angry with the place of deflection that they have entered into. And as you start to see the soft heart, show them that, you know what, I need to stop blaming my spouse. I need to start taking responsibility and I need to stop justifying. You will see that deflection, they'll start to turn inward and look at themselves. And that is exactly where God wants them to start looking. I have seen that deflection really does need to come before you can do this, because if you don't go down the bad path of deflecting and blaming everyone else, you can enter into a place of passivity where you start to take responsibility, but you sugarcoat it. And deflection prevents you from sugarcoating. It prevents you from making the truth watered down because you've already explored the exact opposite. You have already gone through the worst of the worst in deflection, blaming them for absolutely everything and taking fully no responsibility. So when you flip the switch and you start to really look at yourself, examine yourself, you can't go back to that other place that you were where you were blaming them because you know deep down you've been there and none of it made sense. And you start to really look at yourself and say, maybe this really was me. Maybe I chose to fully enter into a place of rebellion and sin. And then you start to even explore even deeper why. And a lot of spouses will do this. They'll start to go into a real soul searching place. And that all happens because of deflection. Now, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for the stander who has to endure their bringing up past hurts and really being angry and bitter at us? It's not fun and it hurts. It really does hurt. But I found that once the Lord revealed to me why he was deflecting, why they deflect, I was able to endure it with a different type of perspective, which eased my hurt. It still hurt. I'm not going to lie. It hurts, but it kept me from getting resentful. It kept me from getting bitter. It kept me from getting defensive and putting up an offensive spirit where I reacted and, projected onto him all of that hurt. I was able to go straight to God a lot of times where I was in that very hurt place and immediately just start saying, Sheila, he's deflecting because he needs to justify what he's doing. And it calmed me down. And it also made me see truth. Because when they're coming at you with all of these lies, they really, at that time, they believe it on a front level where deep down they know it's truth. So they will actually magnify that flaw. Something like I said was a molehill, they will make into a huge mountain because they need it. They absolutely need that excuse to do what they're doing. Another important thing that I learned through the revelation of deflection was that it was absolutely pointless to argue. Arguing my point usually brought me into a place of anger, which could be used against me, which is where God revealed the word ammunition to me. He said, Sheila, anytime you give him any type of ammunition, he's just going to use that against you to justify what he's doing and deflect. And I found that there was always me loading his gun with bullets against myself when I argued, when I tried to convince him he was wrong, when I tried to defend myself over the most ridiculous things. It just was pointless. It kind of sometimes even proved his point that I was, whatever he was accusing me of, I would probably fall into the trap. I have seen lost spouses actually cause fights, pick fights when the stander won't engage. When they zip their lips, they won't argue, they won't defend. The spouse is usually forced into trying to get a reaction, a bad reaction out of the stander simply so they would have more excuses to keep doing what they're doing. So zip lips is one of the most powerful things you can do. Not defending yourself against the lies and letting God handle it for you, another extremely powerful thing. When you are silent and you are letting God be your defender, you are heaping coals on their head. It's also showing God how much of a place you've come to trust him and let him handle and fight your battles for you. So as hard as it is to stand there and let your spouse keep bringing up things that are just no longer relevant but are being used against you, it's not an easy place to stand there, but it brings about a lot of fruit if you're able to keep quiet, let them have their say, let them talk about what they need to talk about. And it's during those times when you're not defending yourself, they kind of hear how ridiculous and how crazy it sounds. Even though they won't show you or tell you, they will go back and realize, I got to stop beating this dead horse. I got to let this go because it's just pointless. It's pointless now. She won't even argue with me. He won't even argue with me. He won't even fight with me, which is the whole point of me trying to bring this up. It really does help to keep silent in those situations and not add fuel to the fire, which gives them justification. Usually deflection comes very, very early on, like within the first few months, the first moment it happens, they'll deflect and give you excuses if you hear that. But it can last up to a year or more, and you'll start to see it soften because they cannot endure the deflection for so long. And that is why a spouse that is angry and bitter and resentful because of the deflection will transition sometimes into no contact. Because like I said, they can't endure it. It's just too painful to be that bad guy, be that bad girl who's constantly hurting someone. They can't endure it. It's easier for them to just shut down and go no contact. And that's a way of deflecting and pulling back and just blocking everything out. Does it mean that they're not facing themselves? No. You are still in a place of deflecting. It's just coming at it in a different way. Now we're going to look at another form of deflection, which for the stander is not a pretty place at all, because it really messes with your mind. Sometimes a spouse cannot handle what they're doing. So instead of being angry and bitter or resentful, or they'll do both, one day they're angry, bitter, and resentful, then the next day, unfortunately, they can't handle the guilt, so they will try to ease their guilt by being overly kind, even affectionate. They'll try to make sure you still love them. And as soon as you fall for that and believe, oh, this is true, this is genuine, and you let them off the hook by accepting their apologies, by accepting their behavior, by accepting the gifts, accepting whatever they are giving out, all of a sudden they're off the hook and they have a green light in their minds. They are free and clear to go back to their sinful place, which is the whole reason why they were trying to ease their guilt in the first place, because they couldn't handle how they were feeling. Now, this is what I went through, and it was a real mind game, a real messing with my emotions roller coaster, because it was one day the resenting, one day the no contact, one day the guilt easing. And it was just, I was all over the place. He was all over the place, and it wasn't fun. And it was a really eye-opening thing when God actually showed me what was really going on in all three of those areas. And I came into knowledge of deflection. And I'm telling you, it was like a lighthouse in a storm. I could see where I was going, and I could see help. I needed help to understand all of these mood swings and things that were giving me whiplash, you know. So with deflection came the power that I didn't have to be sucked in to his deflection, and I could see truth. I could see the lies for the lies, but I could also see where there was truth. We are not innocent. Okay, there are real places that we need to work on. No one is perfect in their marriage, and we absolutely are never going to be perfect, but we do have issues. We do have issues that really do bother our spouses, and in their time of deflection, we need to learn how to reflect and self-examine our own hearts. This is such an important time for you, as your spouse is in the bosom of God and learning what God needs to teach them. You need to also go to the Lord, and you need to stop deflecting, because we do it too. We really do. Day after day, look at them. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? We try to figure it out. This video, I'm hoping, will help you a little bit to ease off of those questions of constantly, I don't understand why, I don't understand how. And today I want you to start to understand that it's a place for you to stop deflecting as well, because while you're trying to answer all those questions, you're not self-focused on what you need to be focused on. And God has such a beautiful place he wants to take you to. He wants to show you who he is, and through that you'll learn who you are. So deflection, not a fun place, but it is so important and very, very necessary. I'm going to share a scripture that fits deflection so well. It's John 3:20. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. That's exactly what deflection is. They don't want it exposed. They don't want the true reasons behind why they have made their utterly ridiculous choice revealed. And you know what? Spouses don't even know. And that is going to be a whole nother topic that we're going to go into about the adulterous spirit, how it snares our spouses. And we're not going to blame the adulterous spirit, which is another reason of deflection. Everyone's heard the devil made me do it. A lot of times standers are so quick to jump into a place where it's all the enemy's fault, that our spouse is just like, they were just walking along one day and someone came out of nowhere and put a hoodie over them and put a gun to their head and forced them to do these horrible things. No, you know, we understand that the devil roams around like a roaring lion looking for whom to devour. Well, if your spouse is in the wrong place, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, if they're in that place where they are easily devoured, that's where they're going to get taken advantage of by the adulterous spirit. And we are going to talk about that in another video. So be aware of that coming out very soon. Some of the other topics we are going to discuss is how to handle friends and family when they are not supportive of your stand. And we're going to talk about why they are not supportive of your stand. So, like I said, hit the subscribe button, the little bell notifications. And if you haven't done so already, please put your anniversary date in the comments. And if there's any topics that you guys would like me to talk about, please leave that in the topics in the comments down below as well. God bless you guys. God bless your stand. God bless your spouse and your family.